And this season is inspired by the Leo Aquarius polarity. And the more I sat with this season, the more I realized it isn't really about becoming more confident. It's about something much deeper. While the archetype of Leo asks us what is uniquely yours to express, Aquarius proposes a completely different question of how does that uniqueness becomes part of something greater than yourself?
Thank you so much, Anastasia. It's such a joy to be here. I'm Rosalie. I'm a spiritual coach and Reiki master. And I created the Purifying Place, which is a place where women can uncover who they truly are at a soul level and return to that authentic expression of who they are. And I think the whole process through this healing journey is having someone who has gone through their own transformation and has come out through it on the other side and can help guide women in a safe space where they feel seen, heard, and free to just express all parts of them and return to that wholeness. So I'm happy to be here, and I am excited to explore this season with you.
Oh, awesome. And I'm excited too. It's a beautiful season to explore together as a community. And so I want to dive deep into three reflections that came up during the last opening stream that I did. And I have the three tarot messages that came alongside with those reflections as well. So we're going to take it from the first reflection, and that is visibility. All right. So that was a prominent theme here with visibility. And I feel like one of the strongest messages that came through around visibility specifically was deception or hiding something from ourselves, um, because there's some sort of fear perhaps surrounding us from shining fully or being seen fully. And so, with that, we hide parts of ourselves. Perhaps it's our ideas, our voice, our gifts, whether we're conscious about it or we're not. Here comes the little bit of picking your brain during these sessions. Why do you think so many of us instinctively hide who we are, even when we deeply want to be seen? And there's a two-part question to this is that, and what does it actually look like to begin showing up authentically in the everyday life?
Yes, these are really deep questions. I love them. Um, and you know what, when you think of it, you said, why do you think so many of us instinctively hide who we really are?
Mhm.
And it's interesting because like instinct, you think of something that comes naturally. And I think it seems natural, but it's something that we've learned over time, over repetition. And, growing up in this world, in the family we grew up in the culture we live in, whatever it might be, all of the things in our environment have, are putting impressions onto us every year that we're alive here on earth, every time we go through an experience. And just to kind of simplify that, it could be a positive experience or a negative one. And what happens is, over time, based on our experiences, if we were fully expressing ourselves, but for example, a family member screamed at us, or we were laughed at school, or bullied, or made fun of, you know, as children, we might not always have the capacity or the awareness and the tools to move through something that feels traumatic, right? With a big T or a little t. And so, and our family members, our teachers, people around us might not also have that capacity or awareness or tools to recognize, hey, that was something that was big for me that left an imprint on how I feel about myself. And so, what happens is we become conditioned to conform. And, you know, within just a family unit, there are expectations by members of that family, by your parents, by your siblings about how you should act and behave. And if it is not in accordance with those, unspoken values, then you get this backlash, or you get punished, or you get put in timeout. And so, again, the child is pushed essentially to conform into this box. And if they're not in an environment or a place where they feel safe or are even allowed to express their authentic truth, navigate through their gifts, express those gifts, then they'll shut them away, right? And so I think as parents, you and I are both mothers. I think it, in a family unit, it's our responsibility, especially as moms, to kind of hold that space for our children. And I'm also a teacher, hold that space for children to just be fully who they are, and recognize that each one of them is created uniquely, by the universe, by source, by God, whatever you believe, and that we all have an innate gift that we're meant to express and give to the world. But children growing up in this world who would eventually become adults, some of them never really access those abilities because they were taught that they were not valuable. So I think people, as much as they yearn to be deeply seen and they want that connection so badly, there's also this underlying message and fear of being isolated, of being rejected, of being persecuted, ostracized. And so we, again, just a lot of us fall into line. And it, through the process of life, maybe later, or sooner, earlier, later, it doesn't matter, whatever your timeline is, we begin to awaken to um, this disconnection from self and begin to return to who we truly are.
That's beautiful. And so that second,
Which leads into your next question.
yeah, so that second fold, so how would that, in your personal experience, how would that look like to be authentically expressive, or to be, to show up, simply to show up authentically? How does that look like in your reality?
Yes. What does it actually look like to begin showing up authentically? Looks differently for everyone, right? So, um, and it's simply about being honest with wherever you're at in this present moment. Because, when I think even about myself, for example, when I made the conscious decision to show up more authentically, that might have been the most authentic expression of myself that I could allow at the time. Although once you build this relationship with yourself at your core, you begin to notice there are some things about you that are not truly who you are, which, ties in with the previous question. There are things, ideas, beliefs, values that we've acquired and have kind of assimilated into unconsciously. And so when you begin to express yourself authentically, begin to show up authentically in the world, all it takes is a pause before responding, before choosing your next action, and truly tuning in to yourself, right? Into your soul, and reflecting within about what would I myself do, right? And before, and even getting deeper into that, begin to ask yourself questions about, well, who am I? What do I stand for? What are my values? What do I believe? Right? And then just be honest about what those answers are to those questions, and begin to take the actions in alignment with those values. And so there's multiple movements that need to be happening where you, excuse me, where you are, yes, taking actions in the most aligned, authentic ways that you can, and at the same time beginning to understand who you are more and more at a deeper level.
Which actually naturally now leads to the Eight of Wands, which we actually got for the second theme, which is around expression. So there was something that you were mentioning about having to sit long in that space of reflection and contemplating about whether I should share this, whether I should not, whether I should take up that class or not, should I go for that certification or not. Eight of Wands is like, all right, enough with the reflection. It's time to move forward. Like, just go for it. Like, just move. The Eight Wands is the passion, it's the drive, it's the oomph. It's like, okay, something needs to like push you towards creating, towards expressing, towards manifesting those ideas and those fears that you're having, to kind of sit with them for a little bit and allow yourself to observe, I guess, what's really holding you back. But I feel like at some point that can, personal story, that I found myself in those cases where I would spend a little extra time reflecting, and trying to heal, where we get into that,
Mhm.
you know, mm, moment, I guess, in our lives where we think we always have to heal. But then it's like that can also be a trap,
Mhm.
that we always think like we need to heal, we need to heal. But, well, maybe just unperfectly just take the first step and see what happens. Like, how do we know that
Yes.
distinction when it's truly us being called forward, or are we trying to push ourselves to act on something? And what does inspired action actually feel like for you?
Yes. Yeah. So you're being called truly forward when you are able to tune into yourself, and this is your soul self, your soul essence, and accept in your heart what your God-given desires are. So everyone has a desire, everyone has a wish, and have you made peace with what those desires are? Because it can look like, I really want to start a business, be successful, make a certain amount of money, make my own schedule, whatever it is. But then there's, again, that conditioned aspect of ourselves that believes, I can't do it. It's not going to come true. Um, and so if you have a desire in your heart, I believe that's really a call from God. Whether it becomes
Mhm.
distorted, that's our responsibility then to reflect and do the inner work to be able to move through that friction in order to make progress in our goals. And I love that you mentioned we can get stuck in this trap of healing constantly,
Mhm.
which, yes, I've been there myself. I see many people who are there as well. And it's true, you don't have to be perfect to start. And you simply just have to use the awareness that you have in this present moment, use your conscious awareness, your intention to make the most aligned step in the direction of your desire now. And that's simply it. The problem is we get so much in our head, we get so disconnected from our truth, we get so attached to wanting to feel whole that we throw ourselves at an outcome, instead of truly enjoying the process with presence. And so that is, there could be 2 people who are exactly the same, who are doing the exact same business, who take the exact same actions, but one is miserable and one is loving the process every step of the way. And that's how you'll know the difference is, what is my energy? What is my state? How am I feeling in this present moment? Am I beating myself up constantly? Do I hate the grind of it all? And I'm telling myself I have to have X amount of dollars made by this time and all this pressure and stress. Or am I moving from wholeness, really feeling in my heart that I want to serve? Being grateful that I
Mhm.
can take this next aligned step. It's the same exact things, but your energetic state and awareness and presence is rooted in different things. The first example is rooted in fear, illusion, disconnection. The second one is harmony, peace, joy, gratitude, surrender. And one is led from fear, and the other is led from faith in God, in the universe, in source, whatever it is that you believe. And so I think the people that we see who seem to simply have it all or be able to accomplish so much, I truly believe they're operating in that second example of I come completely whole as I am now, and you can only truly serve if you're coming from a place of wholeness. If you're coming from fear, if you're coming from disconnection, if you're coming from I want to make the next dollar, I want to be rich, it's it's a taking energy. And so you're not truly serving from your overflow. And it's not to say that money is bad or that you shouldn't want to have all those things. It's just the awareness has needs to grow. And that's why it ties in together with the inner work and the healing, is because
Mhm.
if there is some state of fear, pressure, stress, that is a signal from our soul to our human self, to ourselves, that something is still not seen. There's still something we're not quite understanding, because it doesn't need to be that hard. You're like, yes, there's going to be friction. Yes, there's going to be things that are difficult, but if we're hating every minute of it along the way, that should be a signal to ourselves that something's not right. And so that's where we have to become honest with ourselves and recognize, why is this triggering me? What emotions does this bring up? Where does this come from? What am I believing about myself that's making me feel this way? And then the
Mhm.
healing process comes up. Then the release, the recognition, and the return to your whole eternal self, your soul essence, happens. And then from there, the next aligned step is revealed, and you can take that with more grace. And so the more you become aware of who you are, and you step into who you're becoming, and you begin to broaden that awareness and that capacity to move in a different way, then naturally accomplishing your goals becomes a natural byproduct. And it seems like more effortless than ever, because you're getting out of your own way. You're removing the blockages, the friction, and just allowing yourself to simply be. And that is what inspired action is, right? It's action that is
Mhm.
aligned with your spirit, with your soul, and you surrender to receiving that. If you do what I just talked about, right? Like, you get out of your own way. If you notice for example, this might look like for me, if I am making an action in my business or in my life or with my relationships, whatever it might be, and something comes up where it doesn't feel good, or I'm concerned, or I tune into my body, I feel where is in my physical vessel, and then I tune into it and I simply ask the questions like, what are you feeling? Where does this come from? What do you need
Mhm.
to feel whole again? Like, these kinds of questions, and the question reveals itself. I think a lot of the times we think to be a leader, we have to have all the answers. But a person who is a leader does not need to have all the answers. I remember one of my students saying, "Oh, well, you know all the answers because you're the teacher." Or my daughter saying, "You know all the answers, mommy, because you're an adult." It's like, it's so not true. The reason why we are leaders is because we are willing to not only admit when we don't know, we know how to seek and find the answers. And not the answers that we think they're the answers, the true answers that come ultimately from the greatest awareness, which is ultimately God, the universe, source. And we understand the process in receiving those. And so naturally, when you move and live and work in this presence and state of being, you naturally become a leader. You naturally radiate this light that comes from God, from just pure love and acceptance of not only who you are, but what you're meant to do. And people can feel that magnetism.
I like that naturally. And naturally, I wasn't surprised then why Three of Cups was another reflection that our gifts actually are not just for us. They need to be shared. They're meant to, it's contagious to look at somebody who's positive. Well, I'll be honest, sometimes I get triggered when somebody's positive and you're in a happy mood and you're like, oh, like, this person is in this whatever mood and I'm here, Um, or I can see why somebody would think that. And I'm sure, I've personally been in that situation when you look at somebody and there's a little bit of feeling of, oh, I wish I was that way, or I wish I had a different perspective for me, or it would bring more expansion in my life rather than restriction. I started actually personally thinking about just leadership in general during this season of what it means to be a leader, well, how it feels to be a leader. Do you have all the answers in the end at the end of the day, or you don't, and it's okay not to have all the answers. I feel like there's so many layers that we can both talk about when it comes to this last reflection. But before I ask you a question, because I'm curious about this as well, is one other element I want to bring into this is the Leo Aquarius is, the Leo is the fire element and Aquarius being air. And if you don't ground your fire and you don't ground your air, of course, Aquarius have this stigma or stereotype where they're a little bit disconnected from their emotions. They're a little bit all over the place in terms of it's an air element. So they're like, the way it shows up in each and every one of us,
Mhm.
everybody has Aquarian archetype within us. So it's not just Aquarius or it's not just Leo, but it just got me thinking how easily some of us get disconnected from our emotions because one of the things I think you touched on was feeling what's happening in your body, feeling like if something is not aligning with you, that's a great sign that maybe you're not meant to just be at this job, or maybe you're just not vibing in this environment anymore unless you are completely disconnected from your emotions. And if you are, I'm thinking there's also some sort of key and truth in that of its own of why we tend to disconnect from our emotions as well. The elemental structure,
Mhm.
perhaps, or maybe just we briefly talked about trauma with a T, capital T, small t, or certain fears that we tend to like, I'm not going to feel my emotions right now. But coming back, I just wanted to kind of bring that because we are in Leo season and we're talking about the Leo Aquarius polarity. And so that could be probably supportive and helpful for somebody who resonates with the archetypal zodiac part of this. I would also look at where
Mhm.
whoever is watching this to look at the birth chart to see if there's any challenging aspects to the 11th house, the Aquarian archetype, or just where Aquarius is in their birth chart as well. It's the message of celebration. And so when we carry these unique gifts within us, I feel like these gifts are not just for us, they need to be shared, right? And so I feel like, and actually, Rosalie, for you, have you noticed that when one person gives themselves permission to show up authentically, it often gives other permission to do the same? Why do you think authenticity can be so, so, so contagious?
And I love that it says permission because the permission
Mhm.
that we're looking for ultimately really is just the permission that we give ourselves. Pay attention to them because they're feedback for us. And and I think it gets a bad rap because it's like, oh, if you're too much in your emotions, then you're never going to get anything done and you're just kind of chaotic, and which I get that too. Like if you're too much into your emotions and too absorbed with them and over identify with them, then surely yes, that can happen. Although we need both, right? We need the masculine, we need the feminine. And so, accepting and feeling and moving through those emotions gives us an understanding about ourselves. And then with that newfound awareness, and respect to hold all aspects of ourselves, how are we going to show up authentically and do the next most aligned step that feels the truest for us? It might not be the most perfect way, it might not be to your standards when you start, but the most important thing is that you start, because your soul, which is a heavenly energy, wants to be expressed, and earth gives heaven expression. We are in this human vessel to give our soul meaning, to give ourselves expression in the physical. And if we don't allow ourselves to express, we become depressed. That's again a feeling within ourselves that's signaling to us this is not the way. And so when we begin to take those small authentic steps in the right direction on the right path, we begin to build this confidence, and confidence is just really means with trust. We begin to build the trust within ourselves that makes us realize I can do this. I am worthy of this. I do deserve to show up in this way, and just continue to take the next right step after step after step. And I think the reason why this authenticity, and you see it online now too, people sharing their journeys, health, or whether it's a spiritual journey or family journey, whatever it might be, they just show up fully authentic, unedited, unhinged, raw. And I think our society, our culture, the world is yearning for that after so many years of constant editing, perfection, mood boards, like trying to look and craft this perfect image of self that is just out of reach for so many people and just not authentic. And so authenticity is so contagious now, I think, and it has always been. It's this magnetism and pull because it's what's true. And when people operate from authenticity and their truth, they illuminate and they radiate this light, this God-given light, by simply being who they are, because there are no blockages or strongholds or things that are keeping them restricted in being the full flow of themselves, of their God-given selves. And so this divine light, this divine energy moves through them so freely that unconsciously but energetically people can sense it, and people are like drawn to it. Whoa, why that person is this way? I can feel their presence. I can feel their truth. I can feel their authenticity. And it awakens and sparks that same feeling in others, which leads to peace, right? Because when you're operating from your authentic self, that is what I think true freedom is and true peace is. And what ultimately many people are looking for. And it can be as simple as just honoring who you are in this present moment, being open and capable to accepting who and what that is, and then moving in alignment with that. And who doesn't want that, right?
Definitely seeing more expressions, more visibility, and more risk taking, where people are willing to just put themselves out there. They just need to feel at peace by expressing what has been really stored up, pent up over years of trying to suppress the pain, the guilt, the shame, perhaps around certain moments in their lives that weren't really seen or accepted by others in their community. So I do resonate with what you were saying, that I do see a lot of that showing up. And also because we did step into the year of Aquarius a few years back. And so Aquarius is that Uranian Uranus energy where, it's like a lightning bolt. It's that tower energy in tarot where it's like things will, whether you like it or not, things will penetrate through your psyche. Certain challenges will penetrate through your psyche where you're going to be forced to no longer, I guess, hold on to a past maybe storyline where you're kind of where you're inspired. You just can't be in that container anymore. You have to speak up. You have to share because there's something, some sort of alignment is happening within you that it just kind of draws you to that collective. Before we close, I'd love to guide you through a short practice to reconnect with the light that's already within your heart. All right, my friends. So I'd like to invite you into a quiet moment with yourself. If it feels comfortable, gently close your eyes and take a deep breath in and slowly let it out. Again, breathing in and breathing out. Bring one hand to your heart. Simply notice the warmth beneath your hand. This heart has carried you through every joy, every disappointment, every beginning, and every ending. And through it all, it has never stopped beating for you. Now imagine there's a sun within your heart. Not bright, not dim, simply present. The sun doesn't ask for permission to shine. It doesn't compare itself to the stars. And it doesn't wait until it's perfect. If the wisest part of your heart could speak, what would it want to remember today? Not your fears, not your doubts, but your heart. And now notice if there are any clouds around that sun. Perhaps fear, perhaps doubt, maybe stories, expectations. But today you don't have to clear the sky. Today just notice that behind every cloud, the presence of light has been patiently waiting. Because even on the cloudiest day, the sun never stops shining. It was only hidden from view. Take one more deep breath in. And as you exhale, imagine those clouds gently beginning to part. Not because you force them to, but because you're remembering what has always been behind them. Because the sun never questions whether it should rise. And maybe you should not either. May you leave today, my friend, with a little less fear and a little more permission to be seen. And when you're ready, gently open your eyes and welcome back. We explored about what it means to be seen, to express ourselves, and to trust that our authentic presence has something meaningful to offer. If one part of today's conversation stayed with you, hold on to it. Not too tightly though, but hold on to it. Perhaps carry it to other seasons as well, because sometimes I feel like transformation begins with just one small moment of shining just a little brighter. And perhaps today is one of those days. If you'd like to continue the journey, I invite you to discover your season of transformation and explore which of the six master keys your soul may be moving through on soulessence.com, or more information is going to be in the description. And if Radiant Leadership is your season, I'd love to welcome you into this month's live activation, where we'll continue this journey together. Thank you so much for spending this time with us. Rosaly, thank you for sharing your heart, your vision, and your beautiful presence today, my friend. I'm so grateful to have you as part of this journey and these conversations. And of course, until next time, may you listen with wisdom of your heart. May you have the courage to let yourself be seen. And I wish you luck on this journey of unlocking your soul's magic. Thank you.